minus 30 seconds.
DeAndre Hopkins! Justin Jefferson, have a day! What a catch! C.D. Lamb! Only this guy, I think. I mean, maybe I'm trying to think of somebody else. And he hurdles his way into the end zone. Touchdown. Oh, scared for the interception by Kenny Moore.
2, 1, 0.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the final drive. Josh Frey-Sam here with you. The Christmas tree is live. We are going. It is that time of the year, man. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Welcome to Week 15 edition. We are back as Cam did for me at the beginning of the show. There, I am back. Week 15 edition, Sunday, December 19th, 2021. We are rolling here. Weird week in the NFL overall. Really weird week. Not really sure what to think about a lot of the games, but that's what we're here to do, man. We're here to recap these games. So I got my buddy Jesse Kornaga here in the dock, loading, waiting to come in. So why don't we bring him in? No stranger to the show.
I'm
Jesse,
back.
You're back as well, baby. You're back as well. How you doing, sir? How was Jesse? We hung out for the noon slate of games. That was a lot of fun, but I departed your place for the rest of the games today. How was the rest of your NFL Sunday, sir? And how's things with you?
Things are good over here. Good slate of games all the way from start to finish today. Definitely interesting. A lot of low-scoring defensive battles, and we're really seeing this final month of the season and this playoff push. Really, it's neck and neck with a lot of teams, and there's a lot of parity in the league this year, and it's going to make for a really exciting run in the next few months, including today.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And actually, man, that's where I wanted to start today, because we had our first and only playoff clinch of the season happen today, this week, and that being none other than your Green Bay Packers. They were and it's kind of weird though, because we're used to seeing at this time of year, like with only a couple weeks left, we're used to seeing multiple teams kind of get set in stone here. You know what I mean? Win their divisions and stuff like that. It's so wide open this year. It's so there's so much parity within the league. With that being said, I do want to actually start off the episode by taking a look at the playoff picture, if you don't mind. So if you'll indulge me, man, maybe like we can go back and forth here a little bit and take a look at this picture. The Packers, like I said, top left there, they have locked down the NFC North for the third year in a row. And now outside of that, man, it's kind of wide open. Now this was, I have this right before the Sunday night football game. So Tampa Bay is now 10-4. I believe that they are still on top of Dallas for that in the second seed there. But my question to you, Jesse, is like, where do you kind of rank this NFC right now? Like Green Bay at the top, I don't know if there's too much argument there with Green Bay at the top. But then after that, like, who do you kind of see as contenders within the NFC at this point? I have Tampa Bay, the Rams, and honestly, the San Francisco 49ers are really starting to come along now. They are 4-1 in their last 5. They're getting hot at the right time. They're healthy. They're getting healthy. I'm honestly, if there's a team I'm going to kind of be scared of to pull upset on some teams, it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers right now. What say you in the NFC?
Yeah, I look at the NFC as a few real contenders and then a bunch of tier 2 teams. My tier 1 teams, the real Super Bowl contenders, I have the Packers, Buccaneers, and actually the Cowboys for me are my 3 contenders in the NFC. Cardinals, Rams are just a tier below for me. I just a couple holes with both those teams. The Rams for me, that November, the November they had, just raised a lot of questions for me. I want to see how they get into the playoffs. But like you said, the Niners have been on a roll, closing up. That'll be interesting where they finish seeding out. Probably going to have to win some games on the road, depending on how the NFC West shakes out. But I'm looking at it. I don't know the schedule for the rest of the NFC West teams, but The Niners just 2 games back now of the Cardinals and the Rams, so it should be interesting to see how that finishes. And the NFC West is going to have a lot to do with how the whole NFC playoff picture plays out here.
Yeah, and then if we go back and look over at the AFC now, let's cut back to the AFC. Like now you have Kansas City at the top. Kansas City for me has been since the beginning of the year, they've kind of been that top dog for me. Now I've kind of wavered a little bit with them, but I think for the most part, Kansas City's been pretty steady for me as they're the team to be in the AFC still going forward. And then followed by that, I think my dark horse is New England. And then am I a little crazy here, kind of thinking maybe possibly Cincinnati pulls an upset in like round 1 here? Like I'm thinking maybe these guys are maybe inexperienced, are going to suffer with the inexperience of when it comes to the playoffs, but Cincinnati kind of intrigues me here. But as it stands right now in the AFC, like I'm looking Kansas City and maybe New England and in the AFC. What are you thinking in the AFC?
Yeah, I think Kansas City has risen to the top of the AFC, given what their defense has done the past 6-7 games. The Patriots, I have like what I saw from them, obviously coming off a loss this week, but that was really a playoff atmosphere on the road against another tough competition. And, outside of some untimely interceptions and special teams plays, they were really in that game. So I really do think the Patriots are contenders, but I think there's only one tier 1 team in the AFC right now, and that's the Chiefs. And then there's a bunch of teams below them from what I've seen. Going back to the Cincinnati Bengals, I've liked what I've seen from them, but even today, man, the AFC playoff picture is so crazy. In both the noon slate and the afternoon slate, just depending on the time of the games, time of the day. Teams were in the playoffs, leading the division, out of the playoffs. Just the AFC playoff picture literally was changing by the minute today. And even though Cincinnati is in a first place in the division right now, there's a lot of AFC North ball left, and all those teams are 1 game away from each other. So
yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know what to think about in the AFC, man. I mean, and then honestly, you have also Miami as a last note. Like Miami's just red hot right now. They've won 6 in a row now. They started the season 1-7. They're now 7-7. Well, if they're kind of the outside team, if I'm looking at real quick to go back to this, if there's one team I'm looking at to kind of make that jump into the playoffs that's on the outside looking in right now, it's probably Miami. I probably got to take the hot team right now. I know that you might not love that with your Raiders. I don't know if you think that maybe they're the team to kind of jump back into the playoff picture here, but Miami's kind of that one team for me. If I'm looking at just ride the hot hand right now, maybe they can sneak into the playoffs, and who knows what happens in the playoffs, Let's before we got Nick coming in here in about 7 minutes time here, Nick Farabaugh. And he's going to talk about the Steelers with us today. But first, let's go recap this Sunday Night Football game real quick. I don't really know what to talk about in this Sunday Night Football game, to be honest with you, man. I'm kind of sitting there watching it, and this is just an ugly game. All caps marks. This is just ugly beginning and Tampa Bay came into this game with number 1 scoring offense. And they lost a lot of guys. Godwin, Evans, Fournette. Right. And then obviously still without AB, and then New Orleans even came in with their own set of banged up guys with Armstead and Ramczyk out. And then also their play caller, Sean Payton. And with that said, I mean, you saw Alvin Kamara only get 13 touches tonight. You also saw less screens in the game. That's something you could really see with Taysom Hill when he comes into the game, is they're not really utilizing Alvin Kamara a lot. There's not in the screen game, I should say, they're not setting up a lot of these screens. Sean Payton loves these screens, but he seems to really love them, especially when there's the more traditional quarterback back there. But when Taysom Hill comes in, yeah, it's a lot more just run, very, very run heavy. But what did you see in this game, man? I know it's really kind of tough to talk about this one. This is just straight defensive battle. Tom Brady might have single-handedly lost me my fantasy week, my playoffs this week. But what did you see this week from this defensive grind?
Yeah, it wasn't the most exciting game for a casual NFL fan. I was really coming into the game looking to see if the Buccaneers were going to play like the Buccaneers versus the Saints. We saw it in the playoff game last year, but outside of that, all the regular season games since Tom Brady has been there and even before, the Bucs have really struggled against the Saints. So I was looking to see if tonight was going to be any different. Tonight was going to be any different. And almost right at the beginning of the game, how it started going, you're like, uh-oh, this is looking like a classic Bucs Saints matchup that we've gotten used to. And the defense really is the only defense I've seen have a lot of answers for this Buccaneers offense. Obviously, they were depleted throughout the game, injuries to skill positions, like you mentioned. But Cam Jordan had himself a major impact on the game. Forced fumble, couple of sacks. He was in Tom Brady's face all night, as was a lot of the interior pressure. We saw David Onyemata get there. This Saints defense has been able to make Tom Brady uncomfortable. You see him scrambling, moving out of the pocket a lot, especially in that second half, which is not a recipe for success for Tom Brady, obviously, given at this point in his career and almost at any point in his career. It's not really his game plan. And from the Bucks, I mean, their defense did enough against the anemic Saints offense today for them to really win the game. It was just a excellent defensive display by Dennis Allen and that the defense in New Orleans there to go on the road and steal a win and keep the Saints playoffs hopes alive. And I guess their division, the chance still have a chance to win the division as well. So huge game for New Orleans.
Yeah, it just kind of looks to me like I don't know what to think about the Saints. Like the Saints for me is just they're just kind of hanging around right now. Like I don't really know. They're just kind of I don't really look at the Saints. They don't scare me. They don't really, especially with Taysom Hill. Like I can't really take them seriously personally. But that defense, I mean, defense can definitely win you some games will come playoff time. So we'll see if that defense can keep pumping come playoff time. But I mean, I don't really know. This was just kind of one of those games for me. I don't know if it really translates going forward for me. I don't know if it's going to carry over into ensuing weeks here. Saints for me is just, I think this was just a really bad game. And you really kind of exposed the Bucs in terms of, well, without their weapons here. I mean, I guess you could say that with any team, but without Evans, without Godwin, without Fournette here, their big three on offense. I mean, this offense is really, really not good. Like, I mean, even with their offensive line for me, we were just talking about, I think last night when we were hanging out, I think I put the Bucs as like their top 3 offensive line in the NFL for me. You know what I mean? And they didn't quite look at that tonight, and that interior pressure, like you mentioned, I mean, that's been the recipe for success against Tom Brady, quote unquote, for the past 2 decades. And, it hasn't really, I mean, as no matter how much teams try to do that, they quite haven't seemed to get that kind of pressure on him like we saw tonight. Like tonight was probably top 3 most flustered I've ever seen Tom Brady, and like that was well done by the Saints. But I don't know if you have anything else to say on this game. But otherwise, I think that maybe we can save the Packers-Ravens game till after Nick. Let's get Nick in here right now here, man. Without further ado, let me welcome in Nick Farabaugh from Pittsburgh Sports Now. Nick, welcome to the show, sir. How is life with you, man? And how is the Pittsburgh game today, man, for you?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's going well. Life is good. The game was interesting, to say the least. Ugly. I wouldn't call it good football. I mean, dramatic football, yes. Close, good football, no. It's one of those games. So if you like dramatics, you'll like it. But if you're a fan of good, sound football, I don't think you were particularly a fan of this one.
I echo those sentiments, man. I absolutely echo those. We were watching this, Jesse and I were watching this game together for the noon slate, 19-13. We got some questions for you, Nick, around the Steelers. Quick anecdote on the Steelers: 168 total yards in this game, guys. Fewest in a win since week 2 of 2010. So these guys, this was ugly. To quote Nick, man, this was some ugly football here. Pittsburgh's defense really seemed to take advantage of the hobbling Titans with Julio going out of the game a little bit earlier there. AJ Brown, obviously, and Derrick Henry not there. The Titans, though, Nick, and this is kind of where I want to bring you in here to kind of maybe break this game down for us. Titans dominated this game in rushing, time of possession, third down efficiency, but lost the turnover battle, which is, we all know, is incredibly important. Lost the turnover battle 4-0. What happened here in today's game, and well, for the Steelers overall, what happened here and how they get this win here? How they scuzz this out?
Well, it felt like a Steelers game that we've seen a million times before, in terms of they're not very good offensively, at least under the Big Ben era, when, the post-surgery Big Ben era, where they haven't been good offensively. I mean, they were terrible offensively. They had one good drive offensively where they actually drove down the field and scored a touchdown, but that was aided by penalties too. So, it wasn't a true 100% great drive that the Steelers just moved down where they were moving at will, and it really wasn't. They never put together a cohesive drive. And there were a few reasons for that. And Ben, the O-line, the receivers didn't really play well. They lost Pat Fryermuth in the middle of the game, which I think really affected them. They couldn't run block. Najee Harris had 18 yards on this game. I mean, he did nothing.
Yeah.
A complete non-factor in this game. But the defense was just opportunistic today. And Pittsburgh's been an opportunistic defense for years now. They were in the tops of the leagues in terms of sacks, turnovers, pressures, QB hits, whatever. They're always there, even though this is not maybe a great defense this year. I mean, they get gashed on the ground repeatedly this year. Obviously, everyone saw it against Minnesota on Thursday night a week ago, but this has been a repeated thing for Pittsburgh this year. But they're just opportunistic. You know, anytime the ball is loose, they usually end up with it. And the Steelers do a great job of just punching the ball out. You know, that's one of their things. We're going to tackle you, but we're going to try and punch that ball out. And they did that really, really well today, forcing those 2 big fumbles, of course, the pick as well, getting their hands up and just finding the tip and getting it for Schobert. This defense was just really good in terms of also just stopping the pass as well. I mean, this is a very one-dimensional unit. And the thing is, the Titans had no explosive runs. So it was all 7-yard runs if it was bad. Maybe I think the longest was 19 on the day. So it wasn't like they were getting, you know, Dalvin Cook 30-yard rushes here. So they had to grind their way down the field. And it allowed the Steelers defense to kind of halt them when they needed to and back them off. And I think that was the big thing here. It allowed more opportunities for the Steelers defense, at least, to kind of get things going.
So how do you, at this point now, how do you kind of see this team? What's your feeling around the Steelers going forward this season? Do you truly, I mean, they're sitting, I think, inside a playoff spot right now. Do you, or maybe just on the outside, I can't remember looking at back at the playoff picture, but anyways, do you see this team as a true contender going forward? Do you see what's your feeling on the Steelers at this point?
I don't think they're a particularly good team. I don't think they're a very good team. I think it's crazy that they're 7-6-1, to be quite honest with you. I don't know how they're 7-6-1. They're not good offensively. This is not a good defense. Like, this defense is not good. They've been gashed on the ground all year, and teams have run well on them. They've gotten explosive plays on them. The secondary is okay. I mean, they got Joe Hayden back, and I think Joe Hayden's return is big. They're now 6-2 when Hayden's in the lineup, and again, that's positively correlated. So his return was big, but the Steelers aren't great. They just lack talent. They're not a particularly well-coached team either. There's a lot of lapses. You've seen the theatrics this team goes through. The fact that they are where they are speaks to, 1, Mike Tomlin, 2, the grittiness the team plays with, and 3, the opportunistic defense. So I don't think they're a good team, but they're a tested team, and they're tough out for just about anybody. So it's a team that I think fights in, week out. And while they might not have the most talent, I mean, that a battle-tested team that fights, it's not one you necessarily want to run into a ton. But I don't think they're a particularly good team. I don't think they're dangerous, for example. Like, I don't think they're going to make a deep playoff run. Can they make the playoffs? Wouldn't surprise me. But again, I don't think they're a particularly great team.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Jesse, go ahead if you got something for Nick here.
Yeah. I mean, like, just my review of the game, I was watching that first half. They were down 13-3, and the only points that they generated in that first half was off of the Tennessee turnover. And I was sitting there asking myself, I was like, what is the recipe for success for this Steelers team? This is a must-win game for them. They're at home in Pittsburgh. Playoff life's pretty much on the line every week from here on out. And I just, watching that first half, I had no idea what they were going to be able to do to win that game. And ultimately, like you said, it was opportunistic turnovers in that second half. I'd venture to bet that all of their points were scored off of turnovers, if not 75% of them, regardless of maybe one score. And I'm just sitting here, and like you said earlier, Nick, this overall roster is not very good. And I'm asking myself, if the defense doesn't play elite or generate this many turnovers, is there even a recipe for success for the Steelers team? Like, I don't see that offense moving the ball outside of getting great field position, controlling the ball. I think they got killed in time of possession. It was honestly a miracle that they won this game. And like you said, speaks to Mike Tomlin, the grittiness of the team, and being able to get those turnovers.
Well, yeah, I mean, all those points are completely right. And the Steelers this year have had some weird things going on offensively, specifically that they start slow and they end really well. This game, they didn't end well. They never got started offensively, but The thing is, Ben Roethlisberger, the recipe for success, if you will, has been Ben Roethlisberger going no huddle and essentially running his offense and him calling the plays. That's what they did against Minnesota. They did it against the Chargers. They did it in the win against Baltimore. So the Steelers just kind of have to hope, and they either one have to get these turnovers or hope the defense can hold in there long enough for the offense to kind of get the machine going and get a few drives where they can get into the end zone. It's a tough recipe because it's nothing is ever consistent with this team. Some weeks they'll have decent run blocking. Some teams they'll be able to pass the ball. Some teams they'll be terrible on both sides and get run out of the building. Other sides they're playing really well, but it always seems like those big divisional games outside of the Cincinnati game where they got blown out in Cincinnati, the Baltimore win, the Cleveland win, they showed up and played a nice team effort in those games. It's an inconsistent team, and again, it's about more about can the team play up to their highest level, because again, I think the innate talent level of this team is not what it once was with most Steeler teams, so they have to play at a higher level and kind of get up 4 games. And I think that's kind of how it is. So it's more about Tomlin motivating them and kind of coming through with everything. It's a tough nut to crack because the Steelers team is, I think, maybe the weirdest of the 7, 6, 8, and 6 teams, because I think every other team's kind of somewhat easy to figure out. The Steelers, though, they're not, again, you look at the roster, it's not particularly good, but they're 7, 6, and 1. So you at least have to take them semi-seriously. I mean, there's only 3 games left.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nick, what I want you to do is here, like, is my question here is I want you to put on your GM cap here for a second. So what do you think right now, looking at it from an unbiased perspective? I don't even know if you would look at it from a biased perspective, but regardless, what's the state right now of the Pittsburgh Steelers? And specifically what I want to know is how is this current state that they're in as a whole team, as a whole organization, how does this going to affect the quarterback position going forward? Obviously, Big Ben, I think he came out and said that this is it, right? This is the last ride, right?
Hasn't come out and completely said it, but pretty much. You know what I mean?
Okay. So we can go under the assumption that this is the last ride for him. So at this point, what is the state of the organization? How does this affect the quarterback position? What do you foresee happening at that position going next year? Is it trading for a Tua? Is it trading for a Deshaun Watson? Is it drafting and this is going to bleed into my next question, but is it drafting a quarterback? Go ahead, and you got the floor with this one.
Yeah, well, there's multiple avenues, of course. I feel like right now you feel like as an organization, you're just running your tires in place, essentially. You're not moving anywhere. In fact, if you're doing anything, you're moving backwards. So you're falling down that hill. And it feels like if I had to rank the rosters right now in the NFL, the brightest futures they have, the Steelers might be bottom 3. They might be bottom 3. It's a really bleak outlook for this team. Really, you're hanging your hat on Mike Tomlin, and that's your biggest asset. So, okay, what are they going to do? Tomlin's talked about mobility all season long. The impact of mobility. This guy's mobile, and this is what he can do because he's mobile. Every press conference we have, the Tomlin Tuesdays, if you will, where he gives the briefing on their opponents. Mobility. He wants a mobile quarterback. So if you're going to get someone, they're going to be mobile. Now, I also think that there's a desire for Tomlin, at the very least, to have some type of vet presence. And a veteran presence, I think, is what they're going to go for. Now, there's big splashes they can go for in the terms of Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, as you mentioned. There's also other minor guys. Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, guys like that. They're free agents, so you could go after that. Like guys like that makes sense to me. I think they're gonna try. I wouldn't surprise me if they go vet draft, like do the double strategy here, where they maybe sign a Tyrod or sign a Mariota and then draft someone. And I think that's kind of what's going to end up happening here. Is they're going to address that in some manner this offseason. I don't think Mason Rudolph is going to be the starter next year. That's what I will say. I don't think Mike Tomlin will stand for it.
I hope not.
I don't think he will stand for it. So my guess is vet quarterback comes in some way, whether that's through a trade, whether that's through signing a guy in free agency, they're going to get a vet, a mobile vet at that though.
I'm praying that it's not Mason Rudolph. Not that I'm a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers in any way, shape, or form, but like, holy mother, I'm not a big fan of Rudolph at all. Nick, my one last question I did have written down for you here, man, was it does pertain to the draft. Now, I understand that you also cover the University of Pittsburgh over there. And there's this quarterback coming out of there named Kenny Pickett, who is really right now, for my money, is if I'm going to place a bet on a guy who I think whose draft stock can kind of start to skyrocket here, at least from quarterback position, I really do think it's Kenny Pickett throughout the draft process. I think that once he gets into, I believe he's in the Senior Bowl. Sorry, I'm not sure if my internet's starting to cut out there, but once I'm talking about going into the Senior Bowl, and then once you also get into his pro day, the scouting combine, things of that nature, I really do think Kenny Pickett can rise his draft stock up into top 10 for sure, if not even possibly top 5, and maybe get some franchise quarterback buzz around his name. Do you agree with that? And just really ultimately, where does he land if you had to guess right now, team, and where is that inside the top 10? Where is that for him?
Well, Kenny Pickett is a quarterback that has grown leaps and bounds. He's a quarterback that his intangibles will just be as valuable as what he gives you on the field. You know, he's going to be a guy that's going to kill interviews, and teams are going to love him because he's a leader. He's tough. He's got moxie. He's the type of guy, you know, that team's going to rally around. Like Pitt has rallied around this guy for 4 years. So it's going to be something that they're going to love. He's got the moxie or the aura of a Joe Burrow, you know, some type of guy like that. He's a guy, though, on the field, man. He can make things happen out the pocket. He's pretty mobile. He's hard to bring down. He's got relative deep accuracy. He doesn't have a great arm, and I think his pocket management's a little bit antsy. So he'll try to escape the pocket out the back door a little bit too much, run into sacks, cause pressure where it doesn't need to be. Relatively, he's a solid processor. There's limitations to this guy's game, though. You know, he's a guy that obviously the small hands are going to be an issue. He has like 8, I think he has 8.25 inch hands. I mean, that's record
really
type hands. I mean, it's very small.
Wow.
That's why he wears 2 gloves. He does have a double jointed thumb on the right hand, though, which actually does mitigate some of that. So we'll see how much that kind of brings it up. But I think Mobile is going to be where this guy wins, because he's got all the other quarterbacks there. You know, Carson Strong is going to be there. Desmond Ridder is going to be there. All these other quarterbacks are going to be there. Malik Willis, I think, is also going to be down there. So tons of quarterbacks down there. And Pickett has the intangibles to really skyrocket here. So teams that like I could see falling in love with Kenny Pickett, for example, I think you look at a team like Carolina, for example, where they need that stable leader. They obviously need a quarterback as well. You know, the Sam Darnold experiment has not gone as well. Cam has been fine, but he's been in and out. PJ Walker hasn't really shown much. They need something in there. So he could be a guy there for them. You know, other teams, if he's got a wide range for me right now, because I could see that him going anywhere from QB1, which could mean top 5, top 10, to somewhere where he's in the background of the first almost. You know, I think he's a first round pick. I'll say that. I think that's a definite. The Steelers, I think, are a possibility. Obviously, they probably know him better than any NFL team right now, just because, I mean, they're literally across the way from the Steelers. They share a facility on the south side of Pittsburgh. So it's a possibility there. I think, you know, an intriguing team for him when you just look at the landscape of quarterbacks, you know, maybe not at the top of the draft overall, but, you know, I don't know. Maybe the Raiders could be a team that they look at. Derek Carr's had some rumors around him. I think he's a type of he's a guy Mike Mayock I think would like. There's other teams around that might be sniffing around him. You know, teams that could be looking to move on from correct. The Washington football team I think could be an interesting fit. He would fit with a Ron Rivera type model. I think that one could potentially work. You just look at guys like that, at orgs like that, for example, the Eagles, the Giants, NFC East. He looks like an NFC East quarterback, tough. He's from Jersey, so you know he's kind of got the whole area brand. But not just that, the guy plays with a really good high level IQ. So you're not going to get too many turnovers from this guy. You're going to have situational awareness. You're going to have mobility too. And again, I think the mobility part of this is huge because again, I think it's a mobile quarterback league. So I think you're looking for that. I also think, Kenny Pickett's a guy that can thrive in a play action offense. He didn't run it a ton at Pitt. He ran a pro style spread type offense where they kind of meshed the two, but it was more of a pro style. So you can work under center. But I bring that up because the Falcons, for example, with Arthur Smith, I think could be a nice fit for him. He can be the new Ryan Tannehill there for Arthur Smith. So if they're looking to move on from Matt Ryan. So there's a few teams that I think he can fit with, but I agree. I think he can have a meteoric kind of rise, and I think he's a definite first-round pick, but he has a wide range depending on how he performs throughout the process. Could be as high as top 5, could be in the back end of that first, but there's certainly opportunity here, I think, for Pickett. I didn't mention them. The Saints could be another one if they, don't want to keep Hill and Winston on and they want to draft a quarterback. There's opportunity here for Pickett, and I think a lot of teams will like him.
I think that one thing that you really mentioned there, Nick, that was really interesting was his small hands. I did not know that. I mean, I haven't started my scouting process yet for 2022. I'm actually going to start that this upcoming week, but that's something I've written down. I'm definitely going to make note of and kind of keep an eye on going forward. And I wonder how that's going to actually impact his draft stock going toward with the colder weather teams like a Pittsburgh, like not Chicago, they got Fields, but like a Pittsburgh, like some of those cold weather teams. I'm wondering if they're just going to maybe if they veer away from him, because like you said, 8.25, is that what you just said? Like that is, those are some tiny hands, man. And that was the big knock on Joe Burrow. Obviously, I think he's done pretty well so far in Cincinnati, but that's definitely going to be a concern and a narrative, I think, that gets tossed out there. Jesse, do you have anything else for Nick before we let him go?
Yeah. One thing today, obviously, with what's gone on with Chase Claypool in Minnesota, and then today I saw him drop a screen pass and just got boos from the crowd. So I wanted to know your opinion on Chase Claypool as a fan and of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and your opinion on him going forward here.
Oh man, I think Claypool is a very talented football player. Just not many guys go 6'4" and run a 4.42. That's just fact of life. 6'4", 230, runs a 4.42. The measurables are all there with Chase Claypool. And I've seen him make unbelievable plays before, so I know it can translate to the football field. But he's an inconsistent, contested catcher. He lets things get in his head. Like it's not just, the celebration stuff. The outside noise gets into Chase Claypool's head, and you can feel it. He gets affected by that stuff. That's stuff that a young player goes through and they naturally mature through. But again, we're getting the end of year 2 now. So Claypool's got to speed up this learning process. He's a really talented player. I don't think he's a particularly polished route runner. I'm not sure if he ever will be. I don't think that's in his athletic skill set. I don't think he's ever been a particularly agile player. But I think he's a guy, again, that he's big, he's fast. He can be a type of DK Metcalf-esque player, maybe not completely on the level of Metcalf, but a similar type of player where he has, this magnetism to him that, oh my goodness, this is a huge dude that go up and get the ball over any of our guys. He's a guy that can burn us deep, get explosive plays. He can mesh if he can mesh the two skill sets of Metcalf and Mike Williams, where he kind of meets in the middle here. And I think that's where his ceiling is. So we're talking about ceiling with that. But the antics, it's kind of over. I'm over it, right? Because he's getting to the end of his second year. So this stuff has to be cleaned up. A vet has to talk to him. Mike Tomlin has to talk to him. Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, would know this better than anybody. Juju is a guy that gets way too much flack for what he does. But in his first few years, he was a guy that let the game get to his head a little bit too much. And I think over the past few years, he's a guy that's mellowed, matured, and kind of understands what's going on out there. Claypool's kind of a similar way. And I think when you look at Claypool, he's a guy that, again, I think he's a very talented football player. The ceiling's sky high with Chase Claypool. There's no question. The talent is never going to be a question with this guy. But the inconsistencies on the field are both physical and mental. He's got things to improve on from a technical perspective. But again, the innate talent, you just can't find in many guys. You're not going to find many 6'4" guys that run 4.42 and legit 4.42 speed. And he has that legitimate speed. So he's a guy that can work for multiple alignments. If he can clean up that stuff, that the celebration stuff, just letting things get to his head. Because if he does one thing bad, it just snowballs. And I saw this with Deontay Johnson last year with his drops, where He had one drop, he would have 5 more, and then he'd get pulled and benched. And that's kind of what's happening with Claypool right now. And Deontay's not had the same issue this year because he's kind of learned it throughout the offseason. This is what I got to do. This is how I mature. This is what I do to move on. So he's probably going to go this year and, talk to a sports psychologist. Like, this is what I need to do to move on from these mishaps and everything. It's just the process of maturing as an NFL player. Now, if it still sticks next year and into year 4, then we'll have a serious talk about, oh my goodness, this is a problem. Yeah. But the talent right now, it's just too much to give up on. He's way too talented, and the ceiling's obviously there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Nick. And us being from Canada here, we are definitely from afar, at least rooting on Chase Claypool, hoping he's definitely represented. Hopefully he can represent the country well. Nick, you've been super generous with your time, man. Can't thank you enough. One last thing before I let you get out of here, though. I do this with every guest. Give me a Super Bowl prediction, and then you can get out of here.
Super Bowl prediction. Okay, on the spot right now, man. I'll give you Chiefs and Packers. And I'll take the Packers in that one. I'll take them 31-28.
Oh, we got a score even. I love that. Love that, Nick. Awesome, man. Okay, we'll write that down. Keep note of it. Nick, man, thank you very much for your time, man. Hopefully we can have you on again next season, and enjoy the rest of the season. Take care of yourself, man.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Good one, Nick.
Awesome guy, man. That was a ton of fun having Nick. Jesse, let's get to this Green Bay Baltimore matchup real quick before we get into our final segment, because I got a lot to talk about here. I think this was the game of the day here in Baltimore, 31-30. A lot to dissect in what was, like I said, the game of the day. Green Bay clinches NFC North and subsequently a playoff spot, as I already mentioned. Aaron Rodgers anecdote, 3 touchdowns on the day, and also with the 3rd touchdown to Davante Adams, tied Brett Favre's franchise record of 442 passing touchdowns, which hopefully he can break on Christmas Day at Lambeau Field versus the Browns next Sunday or next Saturday. I can't even remember. On Christmas Day, whatever that is. So anyways, Davante Adams, though, this was super cool. You obviously you watched this game as well, man. Do you remember that picture of Calvin Johnson versus the Saints that's out there, where it's Calvin Johnson on the goal line and there's 2 Saints defenders just literally lined up right there?
Looks like a punt coverage. Yeah.
Literally looks like a gunner on a punt, right? Davante Adams, I don't think I've ever seen something like this since Calvin Johnson, where I saw Davante Adams start on one side of the formation, he would motion over to the other side, and you would just see his one man, and then you would see a safety just follow him over to the other side. And I was just all game, dude. All game long, and I'm just kind of looking like, holy crap. Like, obviously, in my opinion, he's undisputed for the 2nd season now, best receiver in the NFL, but with that comes obviously a lot of attention. I have not seen something like that like since Calvin Johnson, where the dude is just getting double covered like that obvious, you know what I mean? Ravens, though, I want to get your thoughts on this, Jesse. This obviously came down to a 2-point conversion. If you're in that position, obviously it's easy to sit here and play armchair coach. But if you're in that position, did you agree with that 2-point conversion by Jim Harbaugh?
I mean, it's easy to find flaws in it when it doesn't work, especially for the 2nd time this season. But I mean, Baltimore's had the same kind of luck when they've taken it to overtime. They've been involved in a lot of close games. So honestly, he's been on the aggressive side as a coach, and I don't mind going for it and just trying to win it on one play, especially when you got Aaron Rodgers on the other sideline and the coin toss is 50-50. So I'm happening the Thursday night game when Pat Mahomes took him down. So do you want to play that risk, or would you rather just be sitting on a lead and hopefully end the game, right?
Well, and you look at the way the game was going too. I mean, the Green Bay had scored. They were rolling, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of like if they get the ball back, you don't know if you're getting the ball back. You don't know if they're just gonna go down and kick the field goal or touchdown to win. Who knows? But I think that I absolutely agree with John Harbaugh in that decision to go for it. Listen, high risk, high reward. Obviously, it is what it is. It didn't work out, right? I mean, if Mark Andrews catches the ball, then it is what it is. Okay. Other thing is Tyler Huntley, and I want to kind of carefully make a statement here. So Tyler Huntley, 28 for 40, 215, 2 tugs, no picks, 2 rushing touchdowns on top of this. Lamar Jackson, if he is at quarterback here, do you think that Lamar Jackson even puts the Ravens in this position to win this game? And the reason why I'm asking, and this is going to come off as a complete Lamar Jackson hater, which I couldn't be far further from, okay? I'm not a Lamar Jackson hater. But what I'm wondering is, Tyler Huntley, the biggest thing that stands out to me is 40 passing attempts. If you tell me before any Baltimore Ravens game that Lamar Jackson is going to have 40 passing attempts on the day, I will tell you right there, I will ask, how much did they lose by? That'll be my next question, honestly. And that's because Lamar Jackson has made great plays with his legs. He's made great plays with his arms as well, but he's been so inconsistent still as a passer, in my opinion, that I just don't think you can let him drop back 40 times in a game to go win you a game. Tyler Huntley proved that he could shoulder that load, and he brought them within an extra point of or 2-point conversion of winning this game. I'll pass that on to you, Jesse. Was that too bold of a statement that I just made there, Lamar Jackson? What are your thoughts there on Lamar Jackson as a whole and his skill set at this point in his career?
Yeah, that was pretty bold. Coming into today as a Packers fan, tell me who you'd rather have starting. Who are you more scared of if they started today? Like that? Come on.
Yes, absolutely. I'd be Lamar Jackson. I'd be more scared, but I'm just saying that the way that game script went, if you were to put Lamar Jackson in that game script today, do you think the same score? 40 passing attempts. Yes. I don't. That's my thing.
I don't know about predicting scores of if this and this and this happens. All I'll say is I'm more confident with Lamar Jackson behind center than I am Tyler Huntley. But I will say,
okay.
And as coming in on short notice, backing up Tyler Huntley, played a really good game. He was efficient. Obviously, no turnovers was huge. And it's no reason or it's no surprise to see why RG3 retired after they brought this guy in. He's really proved his worth as a backup here, and Lamar Jackson going into a contract year representing himself as an agent. It's interesting to see someone with a similar skill set to him in a backup role perform pretty well in his absence, and I'm kind of curious to see what ramifications that has on his contract negotiations in the offseason, because this is really the first time we've seen him out of the game and see someone have success in his absence. So.
Yeah, I agree. That's actually an interesting note by you. Yeah, to see how that affects, if it affects his contract, what he asked for. Okay, man. Yeah, other thing I will add to this game is there's just a slew of injuries coming into this game. Packers were missing everybody and their dog, and the Baltimore Ravens also were missing quite a few very important pieces, and yet this game still ended up being 31-30 final score. It was a really entertaining game throughout. Okay, let's go on to our awards. Let's wrap it up and get out of here. Let's go maybe rapid fire through our awards. MVP as it stands right now, we just finished talking about the Green Bay Packers. Who do you have as your MVP? Who do you think the race is between right now? And then who do you have as your MVP?
Well, I had this answer written down prior, unfortunately, prior to that Sunday night game. But going into it was Tom Brady. Obviously, you get shut out at home in prime time. That's going to sway things a little bit. But if I was to place a futures bet right now, I'd still put it on Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers most definitely has to be in that conversation as well. And dark horse candidate from the AFC, Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. And I agree with you through and through. You want to know what? After that Sunday Night Football game, I'm actually going to flip my answer to Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to, because now here's the thing here. If Tom Brady's still, let's just say he's the betting favorite, I guess the better question is, what does Aaron Rodgers need to do to catch Tom Brady in the MVP race? And with that being said, I don't think Aaron's going to catch Tom in passing yards. And that's because Tom Brady's throwing the ball at least 45 times a game. Tom Brady is right now, as it stands, at 600 pass attempts on the year. Aaron Rodgers is at 440. Okay. So Aaron Rodgers isn't going to catch Tom Brady in passing yards. But now on the other side, Tom Brady now has 11 INTs on the season. Aaron Rodgers has 4. Aaron Rodgers 110 passer rating, Tom Brady 104. Both doing really well this year, obviously. Now, what I think Aaron Rodgers needs to do to absolutely secure the MVP over Tom Brady this year, because yes, I do agree with you that Jonathan Taylor is a dark horse, but I think that it's a two-man race in my opinion here. A, Packers get the number 1 seed, and B, Aaron Rodgers gets within a couple touchdown passes of Tom Brady. I think that they're separated by 6 right now, 6 touchdown passes as it stands. I think if Aaron Rodgers narrows that gap to 2 touchdowns, if not matches him or even possibly surpasses Tom Brady, I think that absolutely Aaron Rodgers locks up MVP. I just think that I think that especially if he gets the number 1 seed, because this is a statistics driven, obviously, award, but at the same time, if you get the number 1 seed as well, I think that that's worthy of something. So I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers right now, but your Jonathan Taylor anecdote, I'm going to bleed that into my next one, segue into offensive player of the year. Jonathan Taylor is easily my offensive player of the year. Do you have the same guy?
Yeah, most definitely. Offensive player for me is usually the best non-quarterback in the league, and evidently it's been Jonathan Taylor this year.
Quick note on Jonathan Taylor: he needs to average 160 yards per game to reach 2K on the year. So if you're keeping track of that, he can still reach 2K. Defensive Cooper Kupp is also mathematically speaking. Yes, you're right. So Cooper Kupp would also be, I guess, close second there for that if he can keep his season going. Defensive player of the year, this is where it kind of gets more interesting. I feel like we got 3 people in the running for this. TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, I think, are the 3 leading candidates for everybody. I have TJ Watt personally. I think he's missed a couple of games, and yet he's still on pace to set the sack record this year. I think that it's his to lose as long as he stays injured, or as long as he stays healthy. Pardon me. I think that it's his to lose. What do you have for defensive player of the year?
Yeah, I had Myles Garrett at the top of my list. I think Micah Parsons could. He's still in striking distance. TJ Watt as well. I just feel like with TJ Watt, it's been too much of him being out of the lineup, and even today, missing plays. And obviously they have him in there, and when he's in the game, he makes a huge impact. But it's really just a question mark if he's gonna play 100% of the games for the rest of the season. So talking about the futures bet like we did earlier, that's why I placed my money on Myles Garrett. He's been more consistent this year, and I still think there's a future in which Micah Parsons has 1 or 2 more big games where he's a game wrecker, has either interception, a forced fumble, or a huge sack at a major time. And if he has 2 games like that where he can really impact it,
definitely
either rushing the passer or on the back end or both, and 1 or 2 more games, I think he can really make a case for being, obviously, if he wins defensive player of the year, also defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Micah, that's exactly it. I think it's a little bit of recency bias for me as well here. I mean, TJ Watt just finished watching him make an impact on a game. Myles Garrett isn't going to come until tomorrow afternoon against your against your Raiders. So yeah, if Myles Garrett has a big game tomorrow, obviously you're crossing your fingers that he does not. Then maybe my decision flips to Myles Garrett. A little bit of recency bias there, right? Comeback player of the year. I feel like this is a 2-man race between Dak Prescott and Joe Burrow. I do think that the gap has definitely distanced despite both of these guys. I mean, Joe Burrow, if I'm going to say whose arrow's pointing a little bit more up right now, I'm going to say it's Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow has actually been the hotter quarterback between the two, but I'm still at this moment, I'm going to say Dak Prescott wins comeback player of the year.
Yeah, I feel like, again, if I was a betting man, I'm just going to place the money on the Cowboys guy because they just have more notoriety. But in terms of actual performance on the field this year, I do think what Joe Burrow has overcame and what he's meant to the team. So it's a really close race. It's a really close race for sure.
It is, yeah. And Dak Prescott, I mean, he's not getting as much hype either because a guy like Micah Parsons, for example, is stealing a lot of the show there.
Also, Nick Bosa, dark horse and comeback player of the year as well.
Absolutely. He'd be a dark horse, no question. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Okay, let's go to offensive rookie of the year quickly. I know I didn't throw this one by you, but I think I got Mac Jones. Do you see Jamar Chase finding a way to steal this away from him? Got to lean with the quarterback, right?
It's tough. There's definitely he has the opportunity. He just needs, I think, 1 or 2 more games reminiscent of the ones we saw earlier in the year. And I think that would steal it. I think what's kind of working against Mac Jones is that that 3-pass game. Not necessarily that was a bad thing, but it just kind of illustrates the fact that of what everyone would be holding against him. It's like his success is very team oriented. He's on, you know what I'm saying? So. Just with the evidence of that in that game versus Buffalo, depending on how their season plays out, I think that could eventually come back to bite him, and we might see it go to someone like Jamar Chase, who plays a flashier position if you can put up some big stats.
Right. Might not be as valuable as he appears on paper on the surface, is what you're saying. Mac Jones. Okay, final award to break this down and wrap up the episode here. And this is my favorite right now. Coach of the Year. Who do you have for this? I'm going to go last. Who do you have for Coach of the Year right now?
I got the legend himself, Bill Belichick.
Okay.
Could theoretically win it every year. 7-game win streak, rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
Crazy turnover in the offseason. Everybody questioned him.
Yeah.
And just how the ways in which he can coach his team to win games, and what we evidenced today, just doing historical things, the three pass attempts to win a game, like stuff like that.
Unreal.
Really captures me as a fan and as someone who loves the history of football. And also, to me, that just evidences the fact that he's willing to do things that a lot of other coaches aren't, just to get the victory. And the fact that he's also able to get the quarterback, everybody to buy into that idea, like Mac Jones at the end of the game, like, I just had to do my job. And it's to get people to buy in, have the forethought to do all those things. I think it just speaks to his magnitude and greatness as a coach. Yeah,
if there was a guy who I wouldn't be upset losing this award to, I say like I'm the one who's up for the award, but it's my coach who's up, who I have as a front runner. Man, I bounced between Matt LaFleur and Cliff Kingsbury for like a month. I swear, like the last time that I was on the show here, it was like a month. So, and where I left it off was Cliff Kingsbury is the coach of the year after flipping back from Matt LaFleur. I'm going back to Matt LaFleur, and I think that's going to be my final answer here. And the reason being is I've already noted in depth about their injury history. Okay, how they're still missing 3-4 all pros right now. They haven't been playing with all season long, and at very important positions like left tackle, edge rusher, cornerback as well. So now today as well, they go and win a game against a heavy running team without Kenny Clark, their nose tackle. I think that there's just so many injuries had to overcome. Obviously, he has Aaron Rodgers there. Obviously, that masks a lot of problems, but I just don't, the amount that he's had, I think he's had to overcome more adversity with his injuries than Bill Belichick has with a rookie quarterback, in my opinion. I think that could be a very heated debate, injuries versus a rookie quarterback. But that's where I'm going to leave it. I think Matt LaFleur right now, as it stands, he just needs to get more credit here. I think this is his award as it stands right now. But Bill Belichick, if there's a guy that he's going to lose to, I think it has to be Bill Belichick. Cliff Kingsbury's fallen out of the race for me, but Matt LaFleur's my guy.
Both figuratively and literally.
Both figuratively, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Jesse, let's get to bed here, man. You got to be up bright and early to start mentally preparing for Las Vegas Raiders against the Cleveland Browns at, what is it, 4 o'clock our time here? 4 o'clock Central.
Our time, yeah.
Yeah, man, get some rest. Make sure you eat your Wheaties in the morning, your eggs and your Wheaties, man. Get a good workout in. But and everybody who's watching, man, won't see you until I think Boxing Day next Sunday. Following that NFL day there, that day of NFL. So Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holidays, and we will see you next week on the final drive. For Jesse Kornaga, I am Josh Frey-Sam. Have a good night.